What is going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you my current metal mixing template that I have set up in Logic Pro. So this is my mixing template, my music arrangement template, call it what you will, and my DAW of choice is Logic Pro. However, most of the elements in this template will translate quite easily to any DAW. I don't think I'm using anything specifically that's unique to Logic. It's just, what I use. So this video, we're going to be going over this template track by track. So it'll be a fairly lengthy video, fairly involved, but I really want to instill in you guys, first of all, the fact that you should be using templates, right? It saves you a lot of time and energy. It helps to not hinder your workflow, that creative spark you might have in the moment. You just want to turn on the DAW, plug in your guitar and start recording. This gets you there. You're going to hit the ground running with this template. And I would consider this template to be kind of an intermediate stage as far as the level of difficulty, if you want to call it that. This certainly isn't a pro level, ready to master. It's not that kind of a template. If you want something that's that inclusive, that involved, you're probably going to want to check out, some very famous producers, and I'm sure they're going to charge you a lot of money for those templates as well. But let's be honest, most of us bedroom guitarists, most of us at home recording, musicians, we just need something that's a little above basic, right? Level one is you plug your guitar in, you turn on the DAW, and you're just happy to have a signal and be able to hear your tone, right? Level two, that's kind of where this is. This is sort of like you're ready to write your full track, you're ready to make a demo with your band or what have you. This will get you 95% of the way there easily. So like I said, if this translates to the DAW you're using, cool. And if you're using Logic, even better. I will be offering this template on my website in the next couple of weeks when I get that fully set up. I'll probably charge some nominal fee for it. I know a lot of other guitar YouTubers often charge $25 to $50 for the templates. I think that's kind of excessive, when it's something that you can learn how to do yourself. If you want to spend the time watching enough YouTube tutorials, you eventually will get to this point where I did. So yeah, I'll probably charge a couple of bucks for this thing. But if you've got the time and energy and the patience to set it up, just follow along here and do it yourself. So like I said, we're going to go track by track in this, and it's going to be a pretty lengthy video. So we'll just jump right into it. Starting with the top here, I recently changed my sample rate to 48 from 44 because I realized that 48 is better for social media, especially YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and the like. 44 is more like if you're going to be recording to CDs, which, I'm not doing that, right? So for me, 48 makes more sense. And I've just got some basic, default settings here. I would recommend this too. Before you even do a template, when you open up Logic Pro, if you're, new to setting up Logic, you're going to want to go in the gray bar here and right click and customize all of this stuff. So you may use what you see that I have up here if you want to screenshot that or pause the video. This is what works for me, right? What works for you is going to be different. So customize it to taste. But these are the elements and the buttons I like to have available to me at all times. And because this is a fairly robust template, there's a lot going on here. It does have a little bit of latency. So what you want to do is utilize this button right here, which is your low latency mode, just on off. So you want to have that up at the top at all times, because once you get a lot of tracks going, a lot of buses and sends and things like that, some heavy CPU type of plugins, it's going to drain, it's going to slow you down. So you're going to want to have that low latency button available no matter what template you use. So definitely have that there. Okay, we're going to go track by track. And first off, I want to start off in the fader mode so we can kind of get a sense of what's all going on here. And we're going to go over every single track and all the plugins here. As far as my screen is concerned, you can ignore this audio device row here. This is simply the information from my personal audio interface, which is a PreSonus Quantum HD2, now owned by Fender. So ignore that first row right there. Everything else we're going to talk about, starting with the drums. Now, for this particular template, I've got a few different ones set up on my computer for different drum kits so that I don't even have to select them and reroute them. I'm just ready to go. So this one is P5 from GGD because I figure there's a lot of people out there that are probably using P5. I know it's pretty popular these days. So that's the one I'm using. I've got it routed multi-out with 10 different tracks for all the various different elements in the drums. Yeah, so you're going to want to have Kontakt, whatever your version is. I've got Kontakt 8, which is the most current. And I've got P5 set up there. So we're already all set to go. And then I will mention this too. Any of the plugins that are just kind of gray, they're obviously, those are off. If they're blue, they're currently active. If they're blue with the grayed text, that means that that channel hasn't been utilized yet, and thus they're not really engaged or active. Those particular plugins are just kind of sitting there waiting. So that's kind of what the difference is there. Yeah, but most of the plugins that I'm using here, you know, I'm just showing you my signal chain. I'm showing you the order that I would put these plugins in. Your chain might be a little bit different. You might want to swap things around in different orders if that works for you, if it sounds better. Do what works for you. I'm not telling you this. There's no right or wrong when it comes to this stuff. You know, most people in the industry will do something similar to this. Okay, that's all I'm kind of saying. So first off, this is where you would load P5 on the kick channel here. And then of course I've got an EQ, and I just put a high pass and low pass on there, just something basic. Obviously you're going to move that, to suit wherever your drums, what works good for you. I just kind of have it set, really far out so that it's just on and active and it's there and ready to go. After your EQ, of course, you're going to want to have some sort of compressor. This one's very popular, especially on drums. I love the Distressor plugin, so I have it set there. It's not active, but it always will be when I've got a drum kit going. And then finally, I have a saturation plugin. This is my personal preference, one of my favorite saturator plugins. I like this GSAT Plus because it's not overly intrusive. It doesn't sound, so significantly different when you turn it on or off, which is nice. It's more subtle and nuanced than just over the top too much. This comes on so subtly, and of course you can change it to suit. There are some presets in here too, and it just sounds really nice. But if you're somebody who's using like Saturn, for instance, or some other saturation plugin, that'll be fine. So after that, well, basically all of my drum kits pieces are going into this kick here, a channel, and then from there it's going into the P5 drums drum bus. And here again, you're going to have more compression. I'm just using the stock Logic compressor right here. I've got it set in place. You can use that. So if you don't have the particular plugins that I'm using, of course you can use Logic's compressor plugin. It's great. It works amazingly. You don't really need anything else, I find, but it's always nice to have different flavors. So again, if you've got the Distressor, I've got that in the chain as well. I probably would use one or the other, not both necessarily. Next up here, I've got iZotope Trash. This is an older free version. Sometimes I'll use this to add a little bit of grit to the drums. Also, it's good for saturation or just drive in general. If you want to do something really funky and unique and gritty, you can get it with this particular plugin. It's just there. So that was a free version. If you don't have that, just put your own saturation plugin there. And then I'm ending the chain with a finalizer kind of EQ. Sometimes you just want to set something at the end of the whole chain to kind of do your final little tweaks on the drums overall. Now, next up, I've got a snare bus. Because P5 has a snare top and a snare bottom. But some other drum libraries don't have a top and a bottom. It's just snare. So you would not need this bus necessarily. And whenever that's the case, whenever you're using something different, a different drum library, for instance, and you just don't need that, just delete the track and just use one track. Snare, done. My snare bus is just kind of wide open. There's nothing on it currently. Of course, I would add EQ to it and probably another level of compression. However, for some of the drum elements like the kick, the snare, and all of the toms, I am sending them to a parallel compression bus, which I've named P-Comp. That is down here at the end. Here's my parallel compression bus. So those particular drum elements will be sent here at whatever percentage I deem necessary for each one. I've just got that set to 0. So they're going there as well. So in the parallel compression bus, I'm going to have, again, EQ. That's in the chain. Of course, compression. And the parallel compression bus, you want to have it pretty strong as far as the compression dynamics is concerned, because you're only sending a small percentage of those kit pieces to this track. So I've got it set to 20-1. You probably want to go all the way up to 30-1. I see people do that, just dime it all the way. You may want to change your threshold, make that higher still, and tweak it all to suit. But I just kind of have this set up as a more generalized setting for you, so you kind of hit the ground running with this stuff. And then after that compressor, I've got one more compressor. This will just help to kind of even out whatever weird stuff. If you've got something still poking out or sounding kind of strange after the your heavy compression, I like to run compression in series sometimes. So this is just like a secondary finalizer compressor. This is also free. This is from TDR Tokyo Down Labs. They've got a few different free plugins, which actually sound really good. I like them, so I use them. So I've got that there too. It's set to off, but if you need it, you can use it. All right, so I don't want to belabor the point with the drums too much. I mean, everyone goes into drums, drums, drums. There's a whole lot more that goes into this mix. So after the drums, and of course, well, one last thing I will mention too is that most of these other tracks too in the drum kit, you're going to want to EQ each one of them, and you may want to add some reverb to some of them as well, unless you've got rooms on your particular kit like P5 does. You can work with that, and that's pretty much your drums. After the drums, let's look at, I've got these ordered as bass next. Here is my bass bus consisting of two different tracks. I've got a heavy bass or distorted bass and then a clean bass, which you may not need, but if you're doing more of a rock or hard rock thing, or you have sections with clean guitar, you might want to have a clean bass in that section. Kind of makes sense. So I've got those both here just ready to go. And for me, I've got, let's see, for the heavy bass, I'm running Parallax, but before Parallax, I'm running Nocturnal Bass, the DI version. So it's just DI signal going into Parallax from Neural. I assume a lot of people have Parallax, so I've got that loaded all ready to go. I've just got default, use whatever preset you want to or set it up how you like. And then I've got a channel EQ. That's for the heavy bass. The clean bass is the same thing. However, I currently have it as, Submission Audio's Nocturnal Bass, and I'm using the clean bass here. They also offer distorted bass, or DI, but I'm going clean for the clean bass, and it sounds pretty decent. And then, of course, you can tweak your tone and your drive here with the mixer window if you're familiar with Submission Audio stuff. I do want to get some more different bass libraries from Submission Audio. I will in the future, but right now I just have, Nick's bass, and it sounds pretty good. Again, EQ after that. So both of the bass channels are going to a bass bus. They're summed up here. And here is where I've got my sidechain compression. So of course, you want your bass to duck a little bit when the kick drum hits. That's kind of a typical thing in metal music. I've got it sidechained to the kick, so it's all set to go. I've got some basic settings here, which of course you're going to tweak, depending on what bass you're using, what tone you're using. But that's already live and active, ready to go. Next up is an EQ, which, yes, you're going to EQ this. Of course you're going to. You're probably going to dip it. You're probably going to dip it out somewhere around 40 to 60 hertz, depending on what works for you. After that, in the chain, I've got Ozone's vintage limiter. I just needed some sort of a limiter in the chain because, as you know, bass dynamics can be a little funky sometimes. Sometimes something just pops out or it kind of hums too high or kind of gets a little chirpy if you've got a lot of clanky pick attack. Whatever the case may be, you're going to want to have some kind of a limiter to kind of cut that off to keep your bass tone essentially more normalized. You want to hit heavy, play hard, but you still want to have a nice normalized tone for your mix. And then after that, I've got this compressor again from TDR. Sounds good, works good. Use whatever compressor works for you. I'm just basically showing you my signal chain. So after the drums, after the bass, now we get into the good stuff, guys, the guitars. So this is how I set up my guitars. I've got a rhythm guitar bus consisting of 2 tracks of heavy guitars, left and right, 2 tracks of mid-gain guitars, lower gain guitars, and then 2 tracks of octave rhythm guitars, or these could be swapped out for edge of breakup or low gain tone. So if you want to change the name of this to something else, whatever works for you. And if you're not going to even be using low gain or mid gain stuff, you might just want a quad track. So maybe you want to call this quad 1 left, quad 1 right, whatever works for you. Modify it as you see fit. But yeah, this is my rhythm guitar bus. Basically, my rhythm guitar bus for me means anything that has some level of distortion, boost, saturation in it, not clean guitars, everything else. So that's all in here. And then I'm also running, obviously you can run summing stacks inside of summing stacks. So you can have buses inside of buses, essentially. So for the heavy guitars, for instance, they're in a bus that is also inside the rhythm guitars bus, because the heavy guitars, I usually want to process them a little bit differently than like my low or mid gain stuff, because usually my mid gain guitars generally are going to be like a coil split type of a tone, which is more jangly and bright and crisp. Not necessarily, I don't want to EQ that the same way I would my heavily distorted stuff. So the heavy rhythm guitars have their own bus, for which on that track I have, first of all, EQ that's already active. I've got this free plugin called Soften. I think this was from Softtube. Focusrite Sonics. It's right there. Unfortunately, I don't think this is still available for free or to buy. So I'm fortunate to have it. It's kind of a cheap bootleg version of like a Soothe, something like that. But it works pretty nicely, actually. It dips out some of the frequencies in real time that you probably don't want in your guitar. And you'll be amazed if you happen to have this plugin. It's pretty cool to check it out. It's got some different algorithms here. Usually you want to use guitar for guitar, but not always. Vocal will go a little bit more in the higher frequencies up here. And you just add the percentage that you want, and it works really well. But, use Soothe here or use something else that works for you. And then after that, I have this multi-band compressor, which sounds really nice. This was also free. I think when I bought my Focusrite interface a couple of years ago, they added a bundle of stuff that was free. And I think this was one of those plugins, if I'm not mistaken. I have it set to off, but it's still in the chain because I like it. It's got this air button, which works like kind of like Fresh Air or something else that just boosts up the brightness of the high end in a nice way that's pleasing without adding a lot of fizz and hiss. And it sounded great. I was really surprised recently. I was working on a new track and I threw this in there and it just sounded great. And also, if you're using a really bass heavy or really subby sounding amp or plugin for your guitar, throw on this particular algorithm, this style, the D-Rumble sounds good. And there's a bunch of other ones you can select. And then, there's a lot of things you can modify on this particular plugin. It sounds really good. So I like it. And I'm leaving it there in my heavy guitars bus signal chain. So then we go on to the heavy rhythm guitars themselves. These are the two tracks you're going to put your, left and rights, pan them hard left and right. I didn't put any plugins on these because you're going to put whatever you want to use. But for instance, if I open up my amp sims here, you see these are a selection of most of my amp sims. So just throw in whatever works, whatever you prefer. You might just want to use something like Nolly, or maybe you're using SCL Tones or JST or whatever your favorite brand of amp sim plugins. Stick that there. You can save it, when you save your template and update it, you can save those there. But I just left them blank for now. Same thing with the mid gains, nothing on them, nothing on this either. If I'm going to use some kind of an octave guitar, I'm either going to use Rabea or I might use Misha or Gojira, all from Neural DSP. They all have some sort of an octaver pedal. So, I would put those there. It's pretty common in metal music to do that stuff. Even if you want to pull them down too, you might put something that's really gritty and grungy or fuzzy with a nice octave sound to it, and then just put it down in the background really quiet. That's pretty cool. And if you don't use it, just delete it. That's kind of what my takeaway from this whole template is. If you don't need it, delete it. I'm going to make that a phrase and put that on the screen. For me, I like to have a dedicated recording track. Yeah, it's just kind of floating around. It's its own track. It's not in any bus. And that's usually the track I'm going to go to first to record. This way, I'm right down the center as far as my panning is concerned. I don't have to play around with these. I can leave the panning where they are. And then once you've recorded something, you can simply take that region and drag it up to whatever track you want to put it on. I find that a little bit easier than trying to record on every track and then go to this track and arm this track. I can just stay on this track, the recording track, arm it to record, ready to go. It's there. So, and then if you want to, for instance, maybe you want to hear the heavy guitars that you're going to use through the heavy guitar bus as you're recording, you can do that if you want to. You would simply pull it, drag it under your heavy rhythm guitars, and then now it is a part of that bus. As you can see, there's now 3 tracks here instead of just the left, right. So you can put it there if you want to. I don't find that necessary, but once in a while you might want to do that. But so in the meanwhile, I leave that as its own separate track. Okay, so your recording track is the first thing you're going to use when you first get into your DAW. So I just keep it as a standalone. Like I said, it's its own track, it's its own thing. And again, sticking with the Neural DSP plugins, I did put something on here to get you started. If you happen to have these same plugins, then it'll load right up for you. I've got Archetype Nolly, and this preset is based off of one of his presets called All Purpose Metal Rhythm. I kept the same name, but I tweaked it a little bit for my purposes. It's not too heavy. It's not too light. There's no post effects going on. It's a bare bones. It's got a little bit of drive in front of it. It's a good all around tone, thus All Purpose Metal Rhythm. And then in front of that, I put Misha Mansour's plugin, and I'm using nothing except the precision drive pedal. Nothing else is in the chain. I haven't done anything with the input or the output. Nothing else. So it's just there if you want to use it, but I have the plugin set to off. So if you decide you want to use the precision drive in front of Nolly, boom, it's on there. And then you can go here and turn off that overdrive, or use them both, together. Stack your drives if you want to get something really heavy. Yeah. And I should keep that at 0. Okay, so that's my recording track. Then down here, I put some of the tracks that I use less often toward the bottom because I just don't want to see them visually if there's not going to be any recorded regions on those tracks. So I've got clean guitars here. I've got a clean left and clean right. I will be putting a plugin on both of these. I think I'm going to put like a Misha Mansour X on both of these, and then they sum up to the clean guitar bus, which just has an EQ and a compressor in the chain. Actually, what I would do with the clean guitars, I would do this and keep this first space open, because generally, if you're double tracking clean guitars, you're going to want to track them. You're going to want to track them dry, and then in the clean guitar bus, that's where you would add another iteration of the same amp sim and simply put. Let me show that to you. You would simply put the post effects there and nothing else. You'd run this in stereo. You would use your post effects, for instance, whatever you want to do, delay, reverb, maybe put some flanger in over here, whatever, and run that in stereo so that your two recorded tracks, your pan tracks, will both sum up to that bus. So they'll go dry into the bus. Up here is where you add your effects, and then you've got your EQ and compression. That's pretty typical, I think, for most kind of setups, most templates. So then after the clean guitars, we've got lead guitars, which you may or may not use if you're somebody who does lead work or likes to do solos and stuff. I got you covered with that, because here, lead guitar is going to be basically your main solo channel, and then ambient lead is what I call, kind of background, ambient, lush, shoegazy stuff that's really sits in the background, like a lot of reverb, a lot of delay perhaps, or some other effects. It just makes it sit kind of in the back, more of a production layer as opposed to your main solo channel. Both of those are going into this lead guitar bus, and this bus currently has nothing on it. Might want to just add some EQ to it, whatever you want to do. I don't have the cleans and the leads included in my rhythm guitar bus. You can add one additional layer if you wanted to. You could put all of your guitars completely into their own bus, and that would just be guitars. Some people like to do that where you run, guitars, drums, bass, keys. Okay, next up is synth guitar, which for me, I'm using either Rabea from Neural DSP, because obviously it's got a synthesizer right there in front, or you might want to use Misha's amp because it has the laser pedal and the glitch effects pedals. Those sound cool too, so you can use either one of those for your synth guitars if you want to do something cool like that in the background. Sometimes I'll use a synth guitar layer to emulate another layer of bass, essentially. So that can be good for that. If you're, into that kind of thing and you want to beef up your bass sound and make it sound a little more digitized and synthy, basically. So, yeah. And then lastly, I've got effects here, which is pretty straightforward. In my effects bus, I've got a synth channel, which you would just load up your particular synth of choice, whether it's the free Vital Audio synth or if you're paying for Serum or let's see, you've got, Analog 5 or one of Apple's synthesizers, Native Instruments has a bunch of synthesizers in it too. Whatever works for you. It's just a synth channel. If you don't need it, delete it, like I keep saying. And then lastly, I've got Splice. It's a great sample library. I pay for that service. You probably do too if you make this kind of music. So it's good to have the Splice bridge already loaded. That way you can open up the desktop app of Splice, which is right there, and you can drag in whatever samples you want to. So it's ready to go. Now let's talk about my mix chain, my mix bus, and all that good stuff in the stereo out. So we already mentioned the parallel compression bus. We talked about that. I also have a reverb bus, which I don't currently have anything sent to, I don't believe. No, I've got clean guitars going to bus 5. That is my reverb bus, but nothing's on here. If you decide you want to run reverb or delay even in parallel, and you don't necessarily want it right on the clean guitar tracks or any guitar tracks, make a bus for it. So I've got that already set up here, and I've got a few different flavors. The first one, of course, is Logic's own reverb, which is Space Designer. Next up, I've got a free one, a Valhalla Supermassive. Valhalla makes a bunch of different plugins that all sound really good. Some are free, some are paid for. That's one of the ones I like. And then here's another one that was free. I don't know if it's still available anymore, called Spacer. And I don't even know if it's compatible with my new laptop, but it works fine on my desktop. But it's there. Put your own reverb, your favorite flavor, put that on this, and use it to suit. So you'll bust that there. You'll send a certain percentage of whatever track you're trying to get to your reverb, and there it is. But currently those are all off. I'm not using them. All right, now the good stuff. So for my mix bus, my stereo out, essentially, I've got 2 different options here that you can use depending on what plugins you have or don't have. And again, customize it to suit. If you've got something similar, something different that sounds better to you, use that instead. First off, I'll just say this. I have Ozone 11. Ozone 11 is a complete mixing / mastering, program. It's got all of the different modules in there that you could possibly need to make a great mixing chain. And I usually use that, but I also will sprinkle in some of these other things as well. So let me just get that out of the way so you don't have to look at that visually for the moment. So if you don't have Ozone, 11, 12, 13, or in the future, Ozone 25, they update it every year. If you don't have that, here are some of the other things you probably want to have on your mix bus. So first off, I've got an EQ. Specifically, it's a Pultec style EQ. This is native to Logic Pro. This already comes included, but there are various other ones, paid and free, that do a similar thing. If you know the Pultec trick, I'm not going to get into it here, but I have that as my first plugin in the chain. Secondly, I've got another Pultec. This one is from UAD. It does the same thing. So if you want to try 2 different ones out and see which one sounds better or not use either, they're there for you to check out. Next up, I've got something called Smoother. This was a really cheap plugin. I think it was like 10 or 15 bucks. I picked it up. Again, this is another kind of bootleg version of Soothe or Gullfoss. It's kind of, more like a Soothe thing, I guess. It does pull out some of the resonant frequencies in real time. There's a lot of things you can adjust here in different bands. You can move around. It's pretty cool. I don't find I utilize it too much though, but it's there if you want to check it out. Next up, I've got Logic's own stock compressor. Use whatever one you want to. Platinum Digital is supposed to be very clean and not add too much as far as tonal character to it. So you might want to use that version of it if you're going to add that in at the end. After that, I've got another TDR compressor plugin. This one is more of a mastering compressor, thus it says mastering compressor. So the TDR Kotelnikov, this works really nicely. I find that this is a good glue compressor, and I believe this one was free as well. And I love any plugin that's got a delta so you can hear what it's removing or what it's processing, what it's affecting essentially without the entire mix. Works really well as you can see how much or how little you're affecting with the dry mix and the thresholds, stuff like that. You'll hear more or less of what's being processed with that delta button. Also, the bypass is nice because it's a clean bypass. You don't hear a click in between. So when you're trying to hear before and after, having that bypass button in the plugin is pretty much essential. So I like that one a lot. After that, I've got my saturation plugin. Again, use whatever saturator you prefer. I just like this one. It works really well. And usually you're going to want to use oversampling so that your higher end harmonics aren't distorted in a funny way. It kind of just makes it sound clearer and more precise as to the original source tone. So you're going to want to use oversampling in most instances when you can. After that, I've got an interesting EQ here. It's a tilt EQ. This one I think was free. I can't really remember, but it works great and it does exactly what you think it would do. You know, you can see here visually what's going on. You can unlock this. So if you want to just affect the bass end, for instance, and you can set where it pivots from at any point in the signal chain. So this plugin is really nice because you might find after you're done with your mix, you're like, it just needs a little more top end just overall. And I don't want to kind of go through every single track or figure out what instrument needs a little more of a push. Just the whole mix needs a little bit extra. Go ahead and do that. And you can see how much you're affecting here. If you just want to go up, a tiny little bit like that, good to go. And if you just want to pivot the whole thing, more bass, less treble, boom. More treble, less bass, boom. And then again, set this pivot point anywhere along the line that you want to. It's a nice kind of free plugin. It's kind of cool to have there. After that, I've got a gain plugin because we want to make sure that you are bouncing out to the proper levels, the best level you can get that's not clipping, obviously. So that gain plugin is in the chain. That's Logic's. And then I've got a limiter after that. Use any limiter that you like. This one was free from Mastering the Mix. I like this one because it's got a few different algorithms already kind of built into it. So like YouTube, for instance, for when I'm putting music on YouTube, I'll use that. But try a whole bunch of these. And then, after you pick a preset, you can still do tweaking afterwards. So what you'll do is you'll analyze your song, and then it'll give you a good starting point and you can make adjustments from there. And this plugin is really great too because it shows you at the bottom here, when you hover over anything, it tells you what you're affecting or what the differences will be. So that's really useful there. And again, it's got a delta knob, so you can hear what's being affected, what's being processed. And that was free. I like that one. After that, I've just got a couple of metering plugins, visual meters. Span Plus is a great one. It's a great spectrum analyzer. It shows you all different views. There's so many things you can actually tweak in here to customize the view to how you like it, to see what your overall spectrum looks like from the bass all the way up to the high end. So it's nice. The Span Plus version that I have is a demo version. It's the free version. So I think every 45 or 50 seconds, it'll mute out for a second or two. It doesn't matter because you don't usually need that long to listen to a certain section of your song to see what the spectrum is. And it gives you a full visual readout. But if you want to buy the full paid version, go ahead and do that. Then you won't have any mutes. After that, I've got Ulean loudness meter. Let's see, what do we have here? Another visual aid just to see where you're hitting at as far as your levels. And same thing. You can look at a whole bunch of different stuff here as far as LUFS and all that. Yada yada yada. Lots of different stuff to view here and visualize as far as your readout is concerned. That is pretty much it for this template. So let me know what you guys think. Is this kind of all inclusive? Is this too much information, too many tracks, or is this not enough? What do you use currently? I'd like to know because, maybe this is kind of amateur hour for some of you, or for some people, this might be way too involved and a little bit too intricate for your needs. But really, I find that when you get to a certain stage in your recording path, your journey, call it what you will, you're going to find a time when you want to have a more complex template just set up and ready to go. And that's this. And like I said, this one is set up for P5 by GGD. I also have one for Trivium drums. I also have one set up for Deviant drums. So I will have all of those available on my website soon. I will list the website down below once I have that fully set up for you guys. And I hope this was helpful to you, to some of you out there. Let me know what you guys think. that's pretty much it for the video, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure that you like this video if you watched it all the way through, and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel if you have not already. I really do appreciate it, guys. Until next time, I'm out of here. See ya!